And there will be, and there will be flogging on the deck afterward. So if the phones are off, without further ado, I would like to introduce Richard LeMieux.
It's all on.
Well, the switch is on.
Hello?
I've got the YouTube recording.
Are you? Okay. We're sitting. Everyone can hear me okay? Great. That's great. Well, thanks very much for your gracious invitation, first of all, to be here. It's really wonderful. Today I'll speak to people here young at heart, and then tomorrow I'll speak at Gig Harbor to 16, 17-year-olds of a class at a high school. So I hope what I have to say is received as it is well. So there you go. Is that it, John? Yeah. So at any rate, going forward here, I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit, going back in time and so much. When I make a talk like this, there's a little bit of everything, a potpourri of history, social studies, education, a little bit of religion, a little bit of everything about homelessness, my life, and the people I met along the journey that I ended up living on the street with my little dog Willow, in which I'll send around a picture of her with John Glenn, the astronaut, and Major Baker of the Salvation Army. So if you can just pass that on. My dog Willow, little dog, 10-pound Bichon Frise, who saved my life, and we'll go to that. My history, if you will, we'll start with that. I grew up in a little town in Ohio called Urbana, not too far from Columbus. Anybody here from Ohio? Anybody? You know where it is? You're from Michigan. Oh yeah, we're friends now. Oh, is that right? Okay. Well, I grew up in a little town in Ohio called Urbana, Ohio. There were no homeless people in this little town of 10,000 people when I grew up. Well, there were some homeless people, of course, in Columbus, but not very many here and there, like that. You know, most of them you would call they call them. They were going back to 1943 when I was born. So as I got to be a kid, every once in a while I'd ride my bicycle and I'd go past somebody that looked like they were homeless, but I wasn't sure. As time went by and as we go forward, I had a loving father. I was a baseball fan. My mother and father. They just loved me and protected me, and I was their wonderful little boy. And how many people here are baseball fans? Anybody baseball? You're a baseball fan, okay? And you're a baseball fan, okay? What's your favorite team?
Dodgers.
Dodgers. Mariners. There you go. Okay. Well, when I was a little boy, I loved the Cleveland Indians. Believe it or not, we had a TV set. There's a screen about this big. Remember those little TV sets? And we could get the Indians game on. And I just love watching the Indians. I also just love baseball when my dad would go to work in the morning. 6:30, he'd be out the door, and he'd come home about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I would see him pull up with his little red car, and I'd run in the house and I'd get my baseball glove because I wanted to play catch, you know. And no matter how tired he was from the day, he would say, just a minute, son, just hold on there. And he'd walk in, he'd get his glove, and then we'd throw the ball back and forth in the front yard. And it was like the movie Field of Dreams. How many people have seen that movie? Just like that. You know, I had a wonderful mother and father. Now, a lot of families did not have that, especially today. There are many, many problems there are 31,000 school-age homeless children in the state of Washington. That doesn't mean they're living right outside here or across the street. It could be in all kinds of circumstances. It could be couch surfing. They could be in Pioneer Square. It could be in a foster home, but they're considered homeless at that time. So that's a lot of young people. So our society is going through major changes, especially in 19. I'm sure I remember the 19 year was it? Let's see, I can't remember the exact year, but I got a wonderful opportunity to do something that I dreamed of. I got to be a sports writer. I wanted to be a teacher. Are any teachers in this room? Anybody have been through education as a teacher? You were a teacher. I knew you were a teacher just by your look. What did you teach? Swimming. That's right. Anything you could. That's great. But if you will, I love being a sports writer, especially back in those days. Before I got a job at the Springfield, Ohio Sun newspaper. We had actually 7 sports writers on our staff because newspapers back in those days were big. You know, I covered everything from the Cincinnati Reds when they had Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and Joe Morgan. Even I covered dog shows. I covered Ohio State football when Woody Hayes was there. And of course, I glorified, if you will, these guys. These guys were heroes, right? They were heroes. And I glorified them. Woody Hayes was a hero. That was my job as a sports writer. And so it's just what I did. And I loved that job. But in 1981, I got an opportunity to move to Seattle. Job opportunity. Sports writers and people back in Ohio back in the 60s and 70s, they really didn't think that we thought you didn't have sports in the Northwest. All that was those big guys in the woods, right? What's a big guy named the big scary guy? Yeah, Sasquatch. That's what they had out here. We didn't know much about it. But eventually, I grew up and learned about the Mariners and others later on. But at any rate, I got this opportunity, 1981, and in a short period of time, and the reason I present this is that in a short period of time, I went from being a, quote, poor, somewhat sports writer to a very rich man. Not Bill Gates, if you will, not the Bill Gates. I actually spoke at an event at the Seattle Center where he actually was in the audience with his father about the same homeless issue. But not a Bill Gates, but I had a waterfront home. I had 3 boats, one big boy, 42 feet. I had all the toys, if you will, as a 40-year-old, 50-year-old man could ever want. And they were toys, and whatever I want. I got to travel. I traveled all over the world. I went to I went to Monte Carlo. I went to Rome. I went to Greece. I went to China and walked on the Great Wall of China. And so I had, if you will, a great life. Now, the reason I tell you that is, if you will, that sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes things come along that you struggle with. Sometimes you have an accident in your car. Sometimes your wife may die. Sometimes you may get cancer. All these things come along in our life. And when it comes, what do we do? What do we do? And that's what happened to me. I had a business that was very successful. I was producing medical books for the Washington State Medical Association, the Texas Medical Association, and these books had all the doctors' names listed and all the type of specialties there were in there that they did. Even cell phones, when cell phones were like this big. Remember, cell phones were about this big. Well, one of the first places cell phones were really used was in the, if you will, the medical field. And so their cell phone numbers were in there. So people could get a hold of them from Harborview Hospital, for example. They knew where all their doctors were. They knew how to get a hold of them instantly. If they were on the golf course and they had a patient that was possibly dying, they could get a hold of them. So you got to get here right away. So that's what I did, and I made a lot of money. Nothing wrong with having a lot of money. Nothing wrong at all. But what happened was somebody came along called the computer age, if you will, where all the type of information that many people were producing, including phone books. You remember the old phone book, the big phone book there had all the issues, every type of service you could ever want. That was in there. Now they're all gone. It's all on the computer. And so when that came, it quickly gave me a jolt. But slowly but surely, it destroyed my business. Now, what do you do sometimes when something you've built and you love and you know that you can't go wrong? You just keep on fighting, right? Keep on going, keep on doing the same thing. This computer stuff will go away pretty soon. Well, it did not. Did not. And I lost all my toys. I also lost my wife. She left. I lost everything, my boats, cars. I sold everything, sold the condos, and ended up living in my van, a white van with my dog Willow. And we passed a picture around and showed the copy of a picture of her. And so, you know, I never thought much about a homeless person, any homeless person. You know, I often tell people when I speak at a mission or something like that, where there are a lot of homeless people in there, I didn't care about you. You know, if you were on the street in, say, by the ferry terminal in downtown Seattle, if I walked by, I might put $20 in your hat, but I didn't care. I didn't want to know your name. I didn't want to know where you came from. I did not care. In many ways, I did not judge. I just maybe put that $20 in there for who? For me. Good luck. You know, maybe God will see me putting that $20 in there and say, "Oh yeah, where's Richard? He's a good guy." You know, maybe trying to buy some life. So that's how I thought. Well, I ended up driving away from that waterfront home with just my minivan, Oldsmobile Silhouette. I don't know if you remember those or not, but I drove away with my dog in my lap in the front seat and what clothes I could put in the back. Lost, in depression, not being able to handle this issue. I didn't know what to do. So, what would you have done at that time? My family, they were wonderful, and we've reunited. But what was going to happen? You know, I didn't know. My daughter said, "Dad, you can't stay here," because her husband didn't want me there. Said, "I don't want him to hear." So she had to do what she had to do, right? My youngest son said, "Dad, this is not going to work out. You know, I just don't think it's best. You stay here." And so for 6 months, I drove around. Now, because I was on a little vacation. In your mind, what do you when your troubles come along like that? Sometimes if you get cancer, you say, "Oh well, I'll be fine." You know? But cancer will catch up with you. So for 6 months, I drove around. I stayed all kinds of places. When I had some money, I stayed at a state campground, you know, because they had showers. I could get a shower for $1 too. And I also stayed any place I could find. I stayed in a casino parking lot, you know, because they were open all night long. And there's a place to go to the bathroom, and you can go get the free Pepsi and Coke, you know, that type of thing. So I was smart enough to be able to, like, when it snowed, I would go in a parking lot at the hospital and park in a place where no one could see me, where the light maybe had been out. And so that way I could stay warm. But I had been a rich man. I wanted everything back. And I knew that it wasn't coming back. So on Christmas Eve, I decided that the only thing to do was to end this worthless man's life, because that's how I felt. Worthless. Sometimes you see people that are homeless that have a little bravado about them. You know, I don't need your help. Don't come to me like that. See, they've hardened themselves. They become hardened. You know, they don't want your help. They really do want your help, but it hasn't worked out sometimes. You know, so they'd rather just live in that woods, in that old tent or tarp, than to have to bother with people and other people's problems. So that bravado is just a net that can't get through. So Christmas Eve, I drove to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Everybody here been over that bridge one time or another? And so I drove there with the full intention of ending that worthless man's life, that failure. I needed to end it. My wonderful dog Willow was nice, but that little dog needed a family, right? Needed little kids, needed a family, not just going around, driving around with a guy that would give her a cookie or a hamburger. She needed food, good food, good, and go to the vet too, and get a haircut. And so I went there and I drove. At that time, there was only one bridge there, and I drove down below where there's a big observation area. And I put a note on the dashboard, and I put a bowl of water on the floorboard and a bowl of food on the other side. And the note on the dashboard said, "This is my dog Willow. When you find her, please love her." And then I let the windows down a little bit for fresh air, jumped out of the car, closed the door, didn't look back. She started barking, and I headed for the bridge. I got about, oh gosh, if you've ever been on that bridge, if you've ever walked on it, I have. Cars go over it. It shakes a little bit. There's a lot of noise from that bridge. There's a wind up there, no matter on a sunny day, a lot of wind, it blows you around. So I got out there far enough to know that I could end that worthless man's life. I put my hands on the rail, just like this, and then I climbed up and started to jump, ready to go. But I heard my dog Willow barking. But you know how far away that was? Just how far away that little dog was. With all that noise, there was no way really to hear that. I was hearing it in my heart. I was hearing it in my soul. I was hearing it that she was telling me, "Where are you? Where are you at? Come back, please come back." So my little 9.5-pound dog saved my life. I pushed off that bridge. I ran back to the car, opened the door, and little Willow jumped in my arms and saved my life. Well, very lucky I had that dog. My ex-wife, when we fought about several things towards the end of the relationship, before she went to Texas, she said, "That's just a dog." I said, "No, she's not. Not just a dog. There's no such a thing. It's just a dog." But she didn't mean it that way so much, but she was mad. Sometimes you say things that aren't right when you're mad. So what? So this guy's still alive, but he's still homeless. He's got no place to go. Has just a tiny bit of gas in his car. So where's he going to go? Well, he decided to go towards Bremerton because he stayed there one night in a hospital parking lot. And so we maybe get some help. And so I ended up sleeping that night in a Salvation Army parking lot. And I woke up in the morning and there was noise. People were talking. They were all getting all lined up for breakfast at Sally's. Homeless people. And I came to the realization, that I'm homeless too. And I got to get something to eat. And so I went in, I got in the line, and the line moved forward. They opened up the big old doors. I don't know if you've ever been to see the Bremerton Salvation Army building, but it was an old brick building with a big iron door on the front. And so they opened the big door and people started going in, and we all got in line for food. Had the cook put a big bowl of oatmeal on in my bowl that I got, and some donuts, something from Safeway that expired already. Probably so expired that they were all falling apart. But I was hungry, and for the first time, if you will, from when I first became homeless, I opened my eyes to the world, something I had never seen before. So I just, all of a sudden, I was all like awake to look at these homeless people that all these years I may have driven by, didn't care, didn't know. And I sat down with C, one of the people in my book, and Gentleman Jake. Gentleman Jake was a man who'd been in Vietnam. He was at the My Lai massacre. And after he got home from his war, he said, I've never been the same. And he'd been homeless for over 12 years already. But I had a new bunch of friends, some pretty interesting people, actually. You know, I had interviewed Woody Hayes, Pete Rose, and all these guys. But these people, these homeless people were really characters. They had all kinds of stories. They had things to do. They had to. We had to, this and that. They had and they told me about their life and their story, and awakened, if you will, at night. In particular, there was a big Methodist church in town up on the hill, and I would go drive. I asked the pastor there if I could park in the parking lot and sleep there at night. So I parked under a big light, and then I had scrap paper. I got the scrap paper at the Salvation Army because Major Baker, who running the place, they had a big place where they had a bookshelf where they had kinds of papers on there. There was information about where you could get help at the VA. There was information on there where you could get help at the Kitsap Community Resources. And the paper I got, and it also had a lot of religious propaganda too on there too. So I would take those pieces of paper because there was nothing on the back. And then at night I would write longhand about what people were telling me during that day and how I felt and what I saw. And I saw life that I had missed, stories that I had missed. And so I started writing about it. And I did that when I could at picnic tables everywhere in Bremerton. How many people here have been to Bremerton? Wow. So it's the center of the universe, but I would then later on, when I got a good day, I had a picnic table down at Lions Park. I would put my typewriter I got for free on a table, and then I'd put papers here with big rocks so they wouldn't blow away. And then I'd play with Willow a little bit. I'd throw a tennis ball, which she'd run after, and then we'd back and forth. And then when she got tired, she would just lay down, and then I would start writing my book. And if I wrote something I thought that was funny, or I would tear the paper out of the typewriter, and I'd read it. I say, Willow, listen to this. Listen right here. And I'd read her, and she, how dogs are. She'd cock her head like this. Okay, she was my first critic. So I was very fortunate, and I told some of the people that I met on the way. I was very fortunate that I had this opportunity to meet people that I would have never met. It was, if you will, lucky. It was lucky, if you want to call it that I lost everything. Hard to believe, isn't it? I went to Kitsap Mental Health for 3 years, a mental health facility, once a week. Now, if you know anything about Kitsap Mental Health or community health organizations for mental health, they just don't have you come in every week. You're lucky if you come in once a month for help. But I had a story to tell because I was writing a book, and as soon as I've got to tell you the story. I went to Kitsap Mental Health because Major Baker at the Salvation Army said, you should talk to these guys. They can help you a lot. So yeah, he said, I'm going to make an appointment for you. He said, I got an appointment for you. And he said, at 11 o'clock tomorrow, you go there. So I went there, and I went up to the front desk, and I said, there's my name, and I got an appointment. A lady looked on the sheet. She said, no, we don't have an appointment for you. So I was disappointed. I went and I sat back down in a chair, and another guy came in, and he went up there and standing there in front of him. He said, well, he said, I need to see somebody. I'm having problems. I need to see somebody today. And the lady said, well, you'll have to make an appointment. He said, no, I'm not making an appointment. I want to see somebody now. And so took off all his clothes onto the ground, and the lady pushed a big button, a red button on the wall. When people do when there was emergency. So everybody come running, and there's this naked guy Now can I have an appointment? I sat there and I thought, maybe I'll try that next time I come. So the Salvation Army, and while their menu wasn't very good, and the churches, I learned that there's a connection of community where churches in town had meals at night for homeless people, and like in my book, Mrs. People's Diner was a place in the Episcopal Church, if you will, up by Callahan, on Callahan near the hospital. And every Saturday and Sunday, she had a feast for as many as 100, 150 homeless people, where you got baked chicken, meatloaf, tuna noodle casserole, and so I could never miss those because they were so good. And always had pie and cake, because the homeless people, if you will, were her guests. They were important. And you knew it. Over the years, she had done this. She'd look and she couldn't find, if Mary wasn't there, when she knew Mary, she would say to her husband, go find her, go get Mary, make sure she's okay. And so these other meals too. And this sense of community to me that I'd never seen before. I never volunteered anywhere. If you would have come to me when I had the waterfront home and the boats and the cars and everything else, you said, hey, Richard, I got this really cool thing I do on the weekend. I serve a meal at the Episcopal Church with some other people. I really feel good about it. Would you like to come along? And I would say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but I'm busy this month. Maybe next month. Remind me, okay? I had no intention of helping anybody, serving a meal, or anything else. But I'm not being too hard on myself, because that's true of a lot of people. A lot of people go through the days and the months and the years, they never have a chance to meet a homeless person. Now you have a chance because they're right across the street, right? And I understand some people have done some really nice things for them to help them as best they can. Getting a little serious though, what are we going to do about these homeless folks? What can be done? Here's how I look at it, because it's growing, and without it's an emergency. They say, like in Los Angeles, the mayor said we have a homeless emergency. Well, if it's an emergency, then get them in the homes. Build homes fast. If it's an emergency, when the tornado comes to St. Louis or some other place and it blows the whole downtown, everybody gets together. Here they come, right? And they build homes and they get people back inside. So you're just saying this emergency, but you're not treating it like an emergency. In this room, I can tell there are a lot of people who have really good hearts here. I can feel it. I feel it. I know that you're frustrated sometimes when you see on TV, it says, Seattle is dying. These people are scary, right? These people, they're ruining our city. Well, it's their city too. It's their city too. So we have to come together. It's like like on this world, this planet we live on, and particularly where we live, where we're all together. It's one big a bunch of people. Some are rich, some are poor. But just like COVID, when COVID came, when first COVID came, everybody came together and said, you got to wear a mask. 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 You can't have your friends come. You can't have your family come. Nobody can come here because we have an emergency. We have an emergency. And for weeks and months, we went like that, washing your hands. And I had people I know that died. Over 1 million people died in our state. But we did all the things that we were asked to do, and we did it. to save ourselves and other people. There were people, and I've heard it said, that said, well, you know, we really don't care about those older people in those retirement centers or nursing homes. It'd be better if they just died off. Have you heard that? I heard it on TV. It'd be better if they just died off. That way we'd have more room for our younger people, and they'd be out of our way. Hitler, I'm talking about that. Hitler had answers. When he became the Führer, he said, we want to have the German people the strongest people ever. And so all the people that were, quote, handicapped or elderly were taken away. They were the first to get the gas, the handicapped people, because he had solutions to these problems. I'll fix that. We can't do that here. We don't do that. We don't do that in the United States. So we have to come together as best as possible and do what we can when we can to solve what is a homeless emergency. I hope put it this way. When I lost everything, I was scared to death, you know, and I thought I needed to end this life. The homeless people, not Major Baker, but the homeless people were the ones that I saw that were laughing at those tables, at the dinners, and they were the ones that sort of said, well, you know, this isn't so bad after all. I can keep trying. I'll keep on trying. I'll just, and I say that to homeless people today, that I'll try. I'll keep on trying. So I wrote a book. That's Breakfast and Salads, with no intention really that I didn't know what was going to happen to it. I was very fortunate in many ways. It's a long, hard story about how it was published. But someone not long ago, like a month or two ago, plus I have this every once in a while when I speak at a different place, or someone will say, "Well, Richard, we love your book, but if I was a magic man and I could take you today and put you back in your waterfront home with all your boats and all your cars and your wife and all the people who said they cared about you and loved you, and they'd always be there for you. If we could do that, which one would you take? Would you take the one that, or would you take the one over here, door number 2, which you're on the street, you're writing a book, you're meeting these people, you're trying to make a difference in other people's lives. So I would always take door B, because now I have a mission. And sometimes it's a hard mission. You know, it's a hard mission because if you see a lot of homeless people across the street or someplace like that, you know, it's hard to see people that way. You know, it really is difficult. It really is difficult. So I have to take a quick look at my little notes here, because I'm trying to remember something that was vital to talk about. To make it really short and sweet, because here we go. Okay. So my book is published and people read it, old, young, and pretty soon I get telephone calls from all over the place to go speak. And here we are. And I start a school program because I love to speak to young people. And here's what I do. I buy a box of books for kids, or a class set, and then they read the book in their class. And it's very interesting. I was telling others here, my book has a little bit of profanity in it because it's a real book, right? People talking on the street. So kids just love that in class when where they can stand up and say, yeah, we're going to read this book today. And they come to the F word and they look at the teacher like, ah. But after they read my book, Then I ask them to write me a letter. It's important for them to write me a letter like this, not something on the computer, but an actual pen, a piece of paper, and write me a letter, what you think after I come and speak. After they read my book, and then I come and speak. And here's just, I can pick through, but I have altogether, I have drawers full of these. I have probably 2,000 letters from high school kids and junior high kids, middle school kids, because they are our future. And hopefully they will be the ones that come up with the plan to make our world better. That's what I go back to Ohio. That's what my mom and dad were hoping, that sometime or another along the line that I would get a chance to make a difference, not just be a sports writer, but make something for people. So this is a high school letter from Olympic High School, which is a high school in Bremerton, on the outskirts of Bremerton. And this is from a girl named Bailey Swanson. And this letter is 6 years old. So I speak to class. How many classes? I'm speaking tomorrow at a high school class. So you can tell I speak a lot at schools. It says, Bailey writes, thank you for taking the time to come into our class. Your book changed my opinion of several aspects of life. I have decided to start giving back and helping wherever I can. Here. I have, but just saying, she says here, he said, I have a sister. Her sister has been homeless and on the street. She bounced around for a while with her newborn baby living on the street. My mom and dad said they didn't care anymore. She says here, I know I'm just one little tiny person you've helped. Since we read your book, my mom and dad has found my sister and her baby, and they're back home. Said, I can only hope and have the strength to keep on going everywhere. I hope to touch lives of others. So, a high school letter. These things are really important. Here's another one I'll just read real quick. Then we'll go to a little question and answer series, if that's okay. But I don't want to speak too long because you guys can get bored and listen to my monotone bass. But if what I said so far, yeah. Right. Here's another high school kid, Damon Perry. Thank you for coming from my class to share your story. I have grown up hearing all the data about homelessness, and so have most of my peers. When all you see is just numbers from a teacher, it seems so far away. There is such a huge difference between hearing you first and your life experience in a small class setting and listening to your teacher or even a video about homelessness. Okay. There we go. But through your book and your speeches, you give life to the issue, making it personal and real to me as a Damon Perry. So sometimes I have trouble reading their writing, they get a little messy, but that's good. I'd rather have it that way on a computer, computers. So, as I said, there's some history, there's some social studies here, there's some a little bit of everything about what I saw, and I've been blessed to have an opportunity to have a mission to go out into the world and try as best I can to tell you that the people across the street are people. They have problems. We all do from time to time. I don't know how the city is going to help them. Sometimes they try, but I've spoken to as much as the city council and the mayor, and it is a difficult time. But it is an emergency, and I am, every time I get a chance to say so, we need to get all those people inside into some sort of home or hotel, which King County is trying to do. All of them, and then establish friendships. For example, you wouldn't mind going to a guy living in a hotel that's been homeless and say, "Hey, I know these people would do. Would you would you like to go to a movie with us tonight? Or do you like to bowl? You would do that. Would you like, and that's what we need too. We need a community setting where people can go into a hotel where homeless people are and say, would you like to go to a movie? I'll take you to, it would be really cool if you went with us to a movie. All those things. And so I'm trying to get more people to do that. And it's safe. Homeless missions, whether it's a church or a King County or anything else, are much safer, believe it or not, than going to the grocery store in Dallas. You could get shot there because I don't know why that is. People just have too many guns. You can get shot. Where statistically, yes, so far that I know of, no homeless person has ever shot anybody besides another homeless person. Usually an accident. And because they can't afford guns and they can't afford bullets. So that is the story I'm trying to tell. Like I said, I'm blessed. Social studies, history, inspiration, and finally religion. And so what I'm going to do is ask those who can stand up, if you will, for a minute, just stand up. And for me, just stand up. Okay. Now, those who can. You see, this is how I get a standing ovation. It's the only way I can get it. And we're just going to sing one verse of a song that I sing every day. Sometimes I sing it in the shower. Sometimes I sing it while I'm driving in my car. And it's just the first verse of what's called Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace has a word in there in the first sentence that says, save a wretch like me. And a person told me one time, I'm not a wretch, so don't be singing that. And I said, well, if you don't, just use another word. So I know there's good voices in here. You guys are probably good of a choir. Yeah. So you're good, right? You're good. How about you? Are you got a great voice? Are you good? You are. You're the one. Okay. Yeah, well, we're just going to do the first verse and you can grab a hand. Grab a hand. Because God is with us all. My book is not much of a religious book, to be honest with you. It's got all kinds of, it's got profanity and it's got marijuana and it's got some other things in there. But the truth of the matter is that, you got to grab something sometime, somewhere, when you're scared, when you're alone, when you're frightened. You gotta grab something. You just have to, because there's nothing else. There's nothing else. Nothing else. But the song goes like this. Yeah. Song goes like, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a man like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, and now I see. Thank you very much. So, how about questions? Anybody got a question? Yes.
So clearly, before you had your business, you had another career. And so why did you not think to go back to that? Or why did you think that wasn't possible to do again?
I don't know. Here's what I do know is that I had done that. And it was a good thing, right? But I just had done that. And I was looking for jobs, and I do, I got an offer for a job to wash trucks with a wand thing, I guess, milk trucks. And if I did, they pay me, $5 an hour if I do that. And see, I'd be all done. I'd be all wet, all over the place. And then I'd have to sleep in my car at night. See, there's always a reason why sometimes people don't get jobs like that. And so maybe I could have gone with that, but I didn't. Instead, I started writing about the things I saw. And to me, I've got all kinds of awards. I've been on Fox Television. I've been on. I got the Hero of the Homeless Award from the Operation Night Watch, and about several others from different organizations and stuff, awards. So, but I wasn't expecting that, and I didn't want that. What I did want was to write about what I saw because I loved it. For the first time, as I said, first time my eyes actually were open like this. Wow, look at this. These are homeless folks that are struggling. These are people having a tough time every day. I got people that had been to the war, Vietnam. Still some people come. They went to Mieux. They're coming back. Their wife is gone. They're looking for somebody to talk to that can say what I slowly learned to say is that it's all right. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Don't give up. We can't give up. None of us can give up. We have to keep trying. We have to keep trying. And so I started writing a book, and that was maybe what started that. But what was interesting is I wrote, and I became quite famous in Bremerton with the homeless people because they saw me at the park writing, and I told them I was writing a book, and the obvious question was, am I going to be in it? Am I going to be, you'll write about me? And I would say, I don't know yet. I'm not sure. And then the word got around, not only did the homeless people all knew that I was writing a book, and the people who served the meals, when I go there, they said, we heard you're writing a book about us, about all of us. I said, yeah, I think so. You're in it too. And then on the other side, I had a woman come to me. I'd been working over, I was homeless for 3 years. And she said, Richard, I really care about you. I really love you, but I know that you're not really writing a book. You just want to be better than us. And I could have said, go to hell. That wasn't what I do. I said, I'm writing a book. Someday I'll have a book. I'm still writing it. So, well, 2 years later, after there was a book, and she read it, she came to me one day at Mrs. People's Diner and said, Richard, I just have to apologize. I didn't believe a man could write a book in Bremerton, Washington, and be published anywhere. I can't believe it happened. And I said, I can't either. But that's the way it was. Anyone else have a question? Nope. Come in.
When I read your book, one of the things that occurred to me, I appreciated was how it feels to be homeless and asked. We were talking about getting outside of bushes, correct?
Yep.
And
Oh yeah.
Yeah, bump your job or.
Right. Yeah. It's sometimes it's an emergency. You have to have money for gas. You have to have money for food, and you have money for a beer. And so I remember that day because the manager came out and said, you can't beg here. He used the word beg. You can't beg here. And I said, and then he looked at me and he said, haven't I seen you before somewhere? And I said, yeah. I said, over the last couple of years, I probably spent $200,000 in your store, buying your fine $199 bottle of wine and clams and good seafood, But I said, I'm just down on my luck. And he said, well, go across the street. And so I did. I went across the street. I went over to Albertsons, and the story's in my book. You know, I had begged, and it's not easy to beg. It's not easy. That's the reason why sometimes you'll see a street guy on the street or a woman on the street. You know, and they'll say, "Please help me," you know, and because they have to get their mind going that way. You know, because it's not easy to beg. So she said, "Can you please help?" And so across the street, I sat in my van with my dog Willow. My gas gauge was on the bottom. I knew there was no gas, so I knew I had to do something here. So I got in my car and I went to the front door of Albertsons, and I looked around and I saw a person I knew coming towards the door, and I didn't want them to see me, so I hid behind a pillar until he went in. And then I looked, and this lady was coming along. She had an old coat on, red coat, old red coat. When she got closer, I could see there was a couple buttons missing. See, I'm observant. I look very closely. And so I looked at her and I said to her, I said, ma'am, I'm really down on my luck right now. And I said, I'm homeless and I'm lit in my car. And I pointed at my car. Willow was looking out the window like she saw Willow. And she said, sure. So she opened up her purse, and she got down in there and emptied everything. Gave me $67 so I could get a night in a hotel and some gas. That chapter of that book is actually used at Penn State University as part of a course. They use that book to talk about the fact that more than likely, if a guy with a Mercedes, $100,000 Mercedes pulled in the parking lot here, and you went and asked him for money, he'd probably say, nah, get away. From me. If a woman in a red coat in a Volvo or whatever, or beat up Camry or whatever it is, she pulled in there, and if you went up and said, ma'am, I'm honest, I really don't have any money. I need food. I need money for food. That at Penn State University, that teaches that rich people don't give as much, and they don't like to give to. They'd rather give it someplace else, and the only reason they're giving it, not totally, but in many cases, is because they can write it off their tax as a tax reduction. So that's used that way, and that my story, which is there, and actually because they use it at Penn State. The Macmillan books, I don't know if you know anything about Macmillan books, they use it also as part of their classes. They have classes online. And again, you can find it, that they actually use that story, and they call it the lady in red. And it was pretty cool how she, helped me. I had nothing. And he was a poor woman who did that. Still to this day, when I think about that, I just, what would have happened next? Remember? Yeah. So I could have done a lot of other things after I lost it all, and I went to see the bridge. And then I went to see the homeless people. I ended up on the street. I could have done a lot of things, but nothing better than I do now. And here's my book in Korean. It's the Korean edition of my book, Breakfast at Salad. The quick look. She's all Korean, so it's actually bought and sold in New York City and other places where they have a large population of Korean people. I couldn't read anything at all. I took my book and I had to go to my dry cleaner who are Korean. So I took it in and showed it to him. I said, what does it say? He goes, big smile. Good book, help people. Wonderful book. The New York Times. And so I'm not that great of a religious person. You know, I believe in God. I wouldn't tell you if I wouldn't preach to anybody, you know, because you got your own God, you got your own way of life, and that's yours. Eh? But I will tell you that, you know, on that day, and some others, some divine force was there to help this man. And so how can you ask for more in that way? I think I showed everybody the letter from Michelle Obama, who read my book, and if you'll pass it around. So the president's wife and President Obama read my book, and she called me on the phone. You don't get that very often, which was wonderful. And so, and I'm just starting out. Yeah, I'm just beginning. I'm not. There's heck. I met last Thursday with 3 men from Los Angeles, and there's a real good chance they're going to make a movie of this book. Yeah, which would be cool, you know. And so they're coming back in a week and a half again. We're going to meet again with some interesting results. But one of the actors that they've already talked to is a guy named called Gary Sinise. And he's great, isn't he? So he is. We don't know if this. We don't know if what he's trying to do, what Gary's going to try to do to happen. But at least he's trying. He's promised to talk to his old friend Tom Hanks because they were in a movie years ago. And so he said this would be a great movie. And Gary says, I would love to be in it. And he has a band that might play a couple songs like Amazing Grace in that movie. So we'll see. But he does a lot for veterans. He's performed at just about every year in Bremerton at the sub base. So that's cool. So say a prayer for a movie. I just, it'd be cool to have Gary or have Tom Hanks play me. and his sidekick would be Gary Sinise, who would be C. Those who haven't read my book, when they get a chance, you can see that that is there. So yes, dear.
You're not homeless now.
No, I'm not homeless now. Yeah.
And you are living.
I do. I have a apartment in Bremerton, and I don't spend a lot of time there because I'm out trying to do as much as I can, trying to help people as often as possible with different ways. And so, did I give somebody that letter from Michelle Obama? Well, that's right. Go back. Good. Save that for me because I only copy I got. I had more later, but so to answer your question, yeah, I'm trying to write another book but I do not. If someone calls me from, say, anywhere that I can get to in my car, easy, you know. If they call me and they say, "Well, Richard, can you come speak at our homeless mission?" And I'll say yes, and they say, "Well, how much do you charge?" And I'll say, "How much have you got?" Just joking, but because I do have a rate card. It's not, that there's a big, back in New York City, there's a big public relations firm that supposedly is supposed to be getting me business. But if someone calls me and they say, "We just don't have any money to pay you," I will go. It's not the money, it's the message. It's the effort to try. Speaking of homeless mission, the same I say to all the people who are in that mission: don't give up. You know, read. Try to figure out the best path you have to get a place. You know, where or you have a chance also to do the same thing. Because if you help, if somebody helps you, you help somebody else, they help somebody else. Pretty soon, all the homeless people disappear. You know, and it sounds like there's a movie a while back. Oh gosh, a little boy, young boy in school. He the teacher said, I want you to give us a plan of something that will change the world. That was the question of the teacher. Do something that will change the world. And one boy wrote and said, everybody in the whole world to jump up and down and make the world make the world axis, change the world's axis. Everybody all jumps in. The other kid, he says, I got this plan called Pay It Forward. Now, have you ever seen that movie? It's a movie. And so the teacher, he brightens up. Whoa, we have a visitor here. And that movie is that really touches your heart. And still today, there are people who have seen that movie who will go through the drive-through and I'm going to pay for the guy's hamburger behind me, okay? Whatever they ordered, I'm going to pay for it. They're paying it forward. Or someone asks them for help, they pay it forward. You know? And keep on doing that, and doing that. Eventually the world gets rid of lots of problems, you know? And the first scene of that movie, Pay It Forward, if you get a chance to see it, first scene is that child tries to makes his Pay It Forward work himself. And one of the first thing he does is try and help a homeless man. That's the first thing he tries to do. No. And he lets the homeless man sneak into his mother's house. He helps the homeless man with some money he's got. And the homeless man is sleeping in the car in the garage when the mother doesn't know it. Eventually the mother doesn't. She gets mad. She kicks the homeless guy out. And the child goes back to the homeless camp. Oh, thank you very much. It's when you get emotional, your nose starts shrinking. At least mine does. But he says, oh, yeah, okay. The homeless guy is chased out. So he goes to the homeless camp. The homeless boy is, the homeless man is not there. He's left. Well, the young boy thinks he's failed, right? But he doesn't know that the homeless man got hitchhiked and got off a truck hitchhiking on the Washington-Oregon border. And as he starts to walk across the bridge, there's a woman trying to jump. The movie. Well, when he talks to her, he says, please come down. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. She said, leave me alone. She says, leave me alone. He says, no, I can't. Please don't do that. And she said, get away. You can't help me. And her reply is, or his reply is, you can help me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. You can help me. And so she climbs down. So those are the stories. Those are the things that movie directors are looking for. And the message of that movie is, yeah, it worked. It worked. Any other questions? Yes.
Your novel, books felt.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm waiting for a pile of books. There was a tornado in not too far from St. Louis a week and a half ago, and a truck fell over. books got ruined.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, they're coming. You can get it, yeah, you can get it on Amazon. It's a good price, $13.99. You can also get it at Barnes and Noble. Yeah, that's right. You can get it at Walmart, $19.99 or higher. But you can get it online at Walmart and also online at Target. And if you look around in search, sometimes you can find books there, books half price, yeah, all those kinds of things like that.
you have a Kindle version?
I do, right. It's there. Kindle's there. Kindle, it's in Kindle. It's in every form. It's in, like I said, it's in Korean online too. So all that stuff is there, for you to get a chance to take a look. If you buy the book, that's great. That way you got it. And then now I know where you are, and I have friends that care. I'll come. You get the books. You tell. I'll come back inside because you're not that far. And I love what you're doing here. So, and yeah, you can go that way.
I used to have a different look on homeless people. I mean, a number of years ago. And then I went to work uptown in downtown Seattle for about 7.5 years.
Oh wow.
And I had an hour lunch that would be outside every single day. The weather was horrific, to be outside. And I would see these people, and I mean, the homeless problem in the early 90s was nothing like this now. But there was still a population of people downtown
Oh yeah.
that I would see every single day, same people. And I quickly began looking at them with the same question: who were you before? Because everybody had a before.
That's right.
And we used to talk about them at work, and there were people that were the opinion that they were just degenerates who didn't care about what they did or where they were or how. And I always thought that can't be right. There are some people here by choice, but that is, and I come to know that this is the truth. That number is small.
That's correct.
But there are just people who choose to live outside the box. But everybody else has a story about how they came to be in this position. And some of it through circumstances they have no control over and no support system to help them out. And what many of us we have a degree of anger about what's going on across the street because we've done through it before. I think that most of us are still, and I can't speak for everybody, but I still think that most of us want the best for these people and the help that they need to get them out of these circumstances, but we try to take care of ourselves.
Right.
And so I try not to look down on them, even though they make me mad.
Oh yeah.
Those are two things to me.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's a difficult situation in society, not just in Seattle. We're talking border to border, coast to coast.
There,
It's horrendous societal message that we have come to this in this country.
that's correct. Well, as you, my ex, who Sandra, when I finally lost my business and everything was going bad, she moved to Texas. But before that, she was actually the secretary of the CEO at that time. It was called Bon Marché, right? And she would go down at lunch lots of times. And there was a McDonald's. There was a McDonald's right there in the corner, and there was a homeless. She called it bag lady. They called her, So she later in the night when we got together at dinner, Sandra told me about the bag lady, and it was what she would go down. She'd buy her lunch, and at that time too, Bon Marché had actually a cafeteria upstairs. Sometimes she'd bring her up to get a cafeteria, So she had a really good heart, but at that time there weren't that many homeless people there. You didn't see them, my little town, as I started telling you at the beginning, 10,000 people, still 10,000 people, by the way. There's homeless people there. They're shocked in my little town. There's homeless people in my little town, and that is so. People don't like to hear this, but it's true. Our system is failing. It is failing. Our economic system is failing. Now, the problem is right away people rush to judgment and say, "Well, I'm okay. You know, I'm okay." But if something comes along in the next week, well, maybe you have a bad automobile accident, or you lose your job, or something terrible happens and it's gone. You're not okay, and the system is designed to not help you. You know, the system is designed where if you can't pay your credit card, they're going to come after you. They'll take whatever you got. That's the system. You know, they don't. You can say, "Well, my husband died, and I can pay." It don't make a difference to them. And so also the whole process. So people could say, "Well, you know, if you couldn't pay, why did you take this credit card money out in the first place?" It's because everything was okay. You know, I was doing good. Everything was great. Yeah, you know, the system is that way. So once you lose a credit card, you don't get no credit. You know, and I think you've heard these statistics, and it always amazes me that the 25 people, billionaires in the United States, have more money than everybody else in the United States. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. That is part of our failure. How can that be? Why? You know, when I was growing up, the grocery store manager at the IGA, he was a manager. He was making maybe a little bit more than the guy that cleaned was cutting the meat or whatever it was, you know, and now it's $125,000. Homeless programs, you know, homeless programs in Seattle, you know, some of them come and gone. They have one now that brand new, well, not brand new now, it's almost 9 months old, but they started this homeless program to help homeless. And so the first thing he did, they got a $2 million grant. That sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? Right? Well, the first thing they did had to buy new computers so they keep track of everything, right?
Right.
And, you know, that cost money.
The administrative cost too.
And they hired what they call specialists, people that had helped homeless people before to do that. And every specialist got $125,000 a year. Now that grant money is gone, so they got to get more somewhere, you know. And so I have nothing wrong with that $125,000 a year in the marketplace that we now live, because everything costs more. A house, I mean, holy cow, a place to live, you know, is so expensive that it's you know, you almost have to have $100,000 a year to live in certain parts of Seattle. You know. Yes.
You think that part of the problem is fiscal policy, like, no one talks about homeless, like it's something that just evolved in how we got homeless, we just have to house it. There's nothing we can do to just
Right.
take back, because it's nothing new. We had the same thing in the
Right.
20s, 30s. When the
Depression.
10% or 1% had all the money, and we had homeless people, and we had fiscal policy change that kind of corrected it for a while.
Well, when the U.S. government decided they wanted to make an atomic bomb in not Nevada, but New Mexico, wasn't even that town, New Mexico. They built like 1,000 homes overnight. And the same in Tennessee, because they were, I think, in Tennessee. What?
When they created the TDA.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Oh, unbelievable. You know, and they built, 2,000 homes in like a week. I mean, it's like boom, you know, and and that was all government money. You know, they built it to quote employ people to make a bomb. You know, why can't we do the same thing now? Why can't we build all those homes for homeless people? Everybody can have a home and get them done as fast as possible, and then have people come in, this is your home, you know, and have an atmosphere like, movies on the weekend, or try and get people jobs, whatever it is, but programs are, that are really like that. It seems like we don't do that. That we don't want to do that, and there's always the one thing that stops it, I think, is sort of a line drawn that says, okay, these homeless people are not us. They're something different. And most of them don't want to work, and most of them are lazy, and most of them are on drugs, and most of them, and so that line of judgment seems to stop lots of things to happen. It's like, and that unlike other things, like I said, a tornado comes through and blows a town, and news people come, and the feds come in, and they write checks for people to stay wherever they got to stay until they get a new house, and then they build houses and build all this stuff in. And so that's an emergency. And it's just like, to me, that what's across the street, that's an emergency. That is like a tornado came into the lives of whatever it is, 50 or 100 people. And so we have to replace the things that they've lost, to the point at least they're inside and they know people care about them. Now, are all homeless people when we get in there? I can tell you that some are not. Some want to stay outside. And okay. Rules stop blessings. They stop, the South. Yeah, here's a good example. When I was going to the Salvation Army, the Salvation Army had a rule: no dogs were allowed in the building. No dogs were allowed in the building. Okay. Well, now because of Willow and the money she read, there are 7 homeless missions that I told you. The Salvation Army used my book to raise $6 million. They sent it out to people like Jerry Jones, who was they have advisory board people, rich people that give them money every year. And they said, we need to build a new building, and here's this book. And they had a little envelope. People like Jerry Jones sent them, people like Debbie McCumber, and a romance novelist, and gave him $500,000 because of my book. I know that for sure. And so that all came about. So that's all part of helping people. You had your hand up here?
I just wanted to say, it seems to me like there's a lot of contributing factors. I can remember, I go, when I was younger and I worked, I always walked to work. And it didn't used to be that many homeless people there. And then right now, it's along, and the trickle down theory. Yeah. And also the idea that somehow the people that have been housed in I don't know.
Yeah. So one where I was, where the guy was nude.
And being institutional.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I mean, really, from somebody who was out at night every night walking to work, the population quintuple.
That's right. You're correct. Yeah. That's correct. It's really, I mean, so many things, like, as I said before, I went to Kids at Mental Health because I was in depression. There were nights that I would park in the hospital parking lot. It was Harrison Hospital there, and I would go into the emergency room. They had a television in there, and I would go and sit, and I would. And pretty soon, and almost every time, a nurse would come over and she'd say, "Can we help you?" I said, I'm okay. And there I'd be there for 15 or 20 more minutes. And then she'd come over and say, "Are you sure we can't help you?" Well, they did that. She did that. The nurse did it several times. And sometimes I'd look out because there'd be a different nurse at the desk. And I wouldn't have to ask these questions. But one time, this one nurse came over and said, can you help? Can I help you? Do you need some help with something? And I said, yes, I do. I said, I feel like taking my life. And she said, well, wait a minute. She said, wait a minute. So she said, I'll get somebody for you. So she went and she got a doctor, the emergency room doctor. And he came out and he said, come with me. He said, I'll buy you a sandwich. So we went, bought a sandwich in the cafeteria place there at the hospital. And he talked to me, and he said, we have, from time to time, we have people come in that want to take their life. And he said, so I try to tell them how important they are. Somebody loves you somewhere. Somebody loves you somewhere. Somebody cares about you somewhere. So just hang in there, is what he said. Well, I gave him my name, Richard LeMieux. I gave him my name. And the next day I got a call from Kids at Mental Health and said, we heard you were at the hospital. The doctor called. Would you like to come in tomorrow and talk a little bit? And so there are people who care. They're there, at the mental health institution. You're right. Not only that part, but there is, there are people coming back from the wars and from, and we still are doing that. We got people over in Iran, Iraq, Mogadishu, and other places, smaller in numbers, but they still come back with problems. And I can see it. Will you be a U.S. soldier, 210 pounds, 6'2" guy with a pack on and all those clothes you have to wear, and then it's like 135 degrees. Just burn your brain. I mean, I just see how people live like that, but that's what happens. And coming back, sometimes the wife is left or had an affair because she got lonely and had an affair. Other things happen, they come back and their life is not the same when they left. And so they end up eating at the Salvation Army or other places, and they become suicidal. It's like I spoke at the chapel at the submarine base. I do it every year, but I speak to the Marines there. We have 600 Marines, and 300 of them, they go out at night all day long, and they walk the perimeter of the whole subbase all the way around. And then, so they brought in 300, and I talked to them, and then the following week, I talked to the other 300. And at the Comaneras Bridge, one of the Marines, they're Marines. One of the Marines pulled onto the Comaneras Bridge, right up, got out of his car, and went to the railing and jumped. He just jumped. That's it. Left his car. So who knows what was wrong? But I know that bridge. It's not a yes.
Specific person or organization or something that happened that what you already have to do recovery to get you back on your feet and all that.
There was a lot there. First of all, the major at the Salvation Army, a church in town, United Methodist Church. It's a long story, but I'll make it real quick. Every month I would go to the St. Luke's Methodist Church up on the hill, and the pastor there, and I'd ask him if he put some gas in my car, which he did, $20 gas. And then after a while doing that for over 2 years, he finally said to me, he said, our little church just doesn't have much money anymore. Everything's down, people are leaving. So he said, this will be the last time I can do it. And then he said, but there's another Methodist church in town? I said, no. He said, well, I'll give you a map. So to make a long story short, I went there. I asked for gas. I was sick. I had really terrible. I had pneumonia. I should have been in the hospital. my nose was running, so the pastor looked at me and he says, "You don't look very good." He said, "You can spend a couple of nights downstairs if you want inside the church," which is very unusual for that to happen. But he's a nice guy. So I went down there and I stayed in the church for 9 months, where I was still writing at night. And make a long story short of that, first of all, the trustees of the church found out that in the first week that this homeless guy is living in the church. And the trustees of the church said, "Hey, you made a mistake. He could burn this whole place down. He could steal everything in here. There'd be nothing left." And so he said, "Okay, I'll take care of that." Well, this is going towards Thanksgiving. So the week before Thanksgiving, the choir in the church was practicing, and the choir director, because I'm in there and I heard him, so I went in the sanctuary, and the choir director says, "Would you like to be in the choir since you're here?" I said, "Yeah." So I ended up singing in the choir with my little dog Willow. See, and so on the Sunday came up next Sunday, I'm in the choir. I'm sitting there in the choir loft. It's a pretty open. It's a real open choir. And I, with my little choir robe on, with a sash, and little dog Willow, and my it's a Thanksgiving service that weekend. Big deal. So, church is full, and the pastor gives his sermon. We stand up, we sing the anthem, and then I sit down, and a little girl, like that little, in the last row of the church, sitting next to her grandma, little girl gets up while we sit down, and she walks over to the choir loft where I'm sitting with my dog Willow, and she said, "Dog in church, dog in church," and she reached out and started petting Willow. Yeah. I knew at that moment that nobody was going to kick me out of there. Not one. The whole church laughed. Everybody laughed. And so within a short period of time, I went from the dangerous homeless guy that's going to burn the whole church down. He's going to steal everything. He's just going to, everything's going to, so get him out of here. All of a sudden, I am now the security team. Willow and I are the security. We're the security officers. Isn't that neat to have him here at night? He can watch and make sure nobody breaks in, nobody breaks the windows. Yeah, it's good. So, and then after a short period of time, I'm invited to dinner on weekend parties. So I went from fearsome, fearless guy, security team, to all of a sudden friend. That's my friend Richard and his dog Willow. Newspaper caved in an article, a big one. This happened. This happened. A man living in the church. That's what happened. And so, that's that can happen. It could happen. So, hope that answers your question.
I think it's as you were talking about, there are different marginalized groups in our society who are dehumanized in some way, and homeless people are part of that.
You bet. Oh yeah, you bet.
And we're so easy to dehumanize because there is no. Once they get to know you, then you become more of a human.
That's right.
But and then also your example of, I always feel that people who are very privileged and feel like they're entitled because they have all this money and power, and really I see them as being up in the Eiffel Tower, looking down at the people, and that's basically the view that they have, and they don't know how these people are experiencing life or what is given to them daily. And so when you said that you had all this money, you had all this wealth, and it got to a point where you came down to this level of being homeless and really knowing the human.
It's like an epiphany of what? How did I not see this before? You know why? And it wasn't. I don't believe God sent me down to do this. But when I did get there, when I was there, there was an opportunity to write a book, which has made a lot of difference. It's made difference. It's made a difference. And so I know that. That's why I keep on going. As I said, I think I said this earlier in a different way, but when I had all those things and I saw homeless people, I did not care about them. I did not want to know their names. I didn't want to hear their story. I just not care. And if you said to me, as I said before, why don't Richard, we have a great mission program. Would you like to come this Saturday and help serve a meal? I would have said, what would I have said? What would I have said? What would I have said? Not this weekend. I'm busy, but just ask me another time because I wasn't going to do it. I was not going to. Even my friend told me how good it was. I felt better on my boat or other places rather than. So there's the thing I learned that that's it. That's it. In other words, I can't. So I learned. As a learning a teacher, the teacher taught me. Anything else? Yes.
I'm curious if you would ever reconcile with your kids.
I do. In fact, when my book came out, it came out for Christmas time, near Christmas time, and the book came out, and it was in every bookstore in the country, big ones, all the big guys. There was an article in the New York Times, and in the first week my book was out, it was ranked number 38 in the country of all the books. Because that's what happens when there's a book right away, especially when you have a New York Times review. So a month and a half after my book came out, I got a call because I was in an apartment now from my daughter. My daughter said, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" And I said, "Good, Miss Shaw," is her name. She said, "Well, do you think you could come over this weekend maybe, and we're gonna have a cookout and you could come over?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't even know where they lived by then. 3 years later, right? So she says, "Well, Dad," she said, "my neighbor read your book. And so she asked, if you come, would you sign it for her?" Right. And I said, "Sure." And she said, I'm so glad, Dad. I'm so glad for you. And so I'll see them this weekend. It's one of my I have 7 grandchildren. My youngest son has 5 of those. So there's a birthday party for the Kuteri. Kuteri is her name. Q-U-I-T is it means peaceful child, which she's not, by the way. But she it's her birthday, and so yes, I reckon that has happened, and it was because of the book. Without the book, probably no telephone call, no, and the impetus came from her neighbor who said, "Your dad wrote a good book. You should probably get it." And so she read it, bawled, cried. She said, "I read it, I cried." I said, "Well, there's some happy stuff in there, which there is. There's a lot of happy stuff in there. There's a softball game, one of the best softball games ever played in Bremerton. As a Field of Dreams in Bremerton. When you laugh, I guarantee you'll laugh. If you don't laugh in that chapter, you call me and I'll refund your money you bought the book. So that that's how that happened. And I'm so happy that that happened, that way it happened. What is really cool, even after I spoke to her, within a couple weeks, I spoke at the Kingston High School, because that's where one of my grandchildren, Sierra, was going, and she's in the audience. And so at that time, I spoke to the whole school thing, and she's right there in the front row. And so the whole in the big auditorium, so I was speaking to all the kids. And so that's impressive for like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid. Grandpa comes and talks to us all about homelessness, about homeless people, about him. Yep. Right. He'll be there. We're all we'll have a great cake and it'll be fun. Yeah, all that has happened. Happened within a very short period of time, actually, and can't ask for a better result than that one. So it's been wonderful.
Speaking of wonderful, this has been wonderful. I can't say thank you enough for coming. We do have to wrap it up because we have to get this gentleman back to a ferry boat. Not too long, but he'll be here for a few minutes if you want to ask him some questions, but let's give him a hand.
Thank you very much.
And we'd love to have you back.
Well, I'll come back. You bet. I'll come back after you get them.
That'd be great.
So after you read, I promise you, if you you have a great dog in this book. There's a great story of a dog. 7 homeless missions named after my dog Willow in the country. Dunkirk, New York. Vero Beach, Florida. That was sponsored by Governor Country. Englewood, Colorado. Kansas, Washington. Those are all homeless missions that were started because, thank you, dear, because 6 of them are started because one woman read my book. And the one in Dunkirk, New York is really interesting. She said, I don't like to get in front of people, she said, but she read my book and finished it on a Saturday night. She went to her church the next day. And she got up in front of the congregation with my book and she said, everybody needs to read this book. And so the end result is that she started a mission. They got an old empty church. They remodeled it, put showers in for people, and now people have been living there. That's 11 years that happened. No one ever names anything after me. They always name it after my dog.